Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we are looking at Herr, Jesu Christ, du höchstes Gut, which translates to Lord Jesus Christ, you highest good. This is a long chorale. Actually, it's deceptively longer than, its length is actually kind of deceptive because there are some repeated sections with some slight variations, so you couldn't put the repeat literally in there, but a lot of the same chord progressions are implied. This is also another chorale that has instrumental interludes, so there are some points in which a phrase comes in and it's in a different key than the phrase previously, and it seems direct, but the reduction that I did here, it's I guess less of a reduction and more of a like subtraction, where I'm just taking the vocal content out of the piece. There are a couple of instances of direct modulation because of the absence of the instrumental context. So bear that in mind when you're following along, and we're going to hop into the analysis. So 2 sharps in the key signature, we start on B minor, we end on B major. I reckon we are in the key of B minor. And then we have an interesting harmony here. We have C sharp in the bass, D, F, and B. So I think these 3 are accented non-chord tones, appoggiaturas, and then we have C sharp, E, and A sharp with a neighbor tone in the melody, which suggests that this is actually A sharp diminished over C, which is what I'm going to call it, 7/6. We then go to C sharp, E, G, and A sharp, which is A sharp fully diminished 7th over C, which would be taking this chord and turning it into a 6/5. With a flat 7 rather than a natural 7. Here we have D, E, G, and B. Again, we have a similar profile to what we had before, but the B is actually a chord tone in this one, and it gets held over for that reason. It's actually D, D, F sharp, and B, which is our tonic triad in first inversion. 1-7-6-1 is a pretty common chord progression in Bach's music. Then, if we look on, after this passing tone we have in the tenor, we look on beat 3, we have E, B, G, and C sharp, which is C sharp minor 7 flat 5 over E, which is 2-6-5. This A is a neighbor tone, or this A sharp rather is a neighbor tone, bringing attention to that B, but we know that Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords, and as we're getting ready for our perfect authentic cadence in the key of B minor, 2-6-5 is a chord that we would likely see. We then have F sharp, B, F sharp, and D, which is B minor in second inversion. It's a tonic 6/4 chord, cadential. Then we have some neighbor tones in the, we have a neighbor tone in the lower voice and escape tones in the upper voices. And if we spell out this chord, we have E, B, G, and E, which is E minor in root position. That is a 4 chord in root position. And then we have F sharp, A sharp, E, and C, which is F sharp 7. It's a C sharp, not a C natural. Sorry, I forgot to mention. And I'll put the bracket under the 1-6-4 and the 5-7. This 4 chord is kind of like a passing chord, so maybe I should put it in a parentheses like that, because the harmonic rhythm in 3/4 chorales is often on 1 and 3 rather than on each beat, but I'll put it in parentheses there because really 1-6-4 is typically an accessory to 5 rather than it being a chord used in the middle of a progression. Granted, we do see it in some cases, it's just relatively uncommon, and here it's clearly being used in a cadential context. Alright, second phrase, half cadence in the key of B minor. We have a brief tonicization of F sharp minor here, but I don't think we modulate. So we have another B minor chord here, B, D, F sharp, and B, so no need to reanalyze. Sorry, I forgot to mark our B minor chord. That marked our perfect authentic cadence, so 2 B minor chords in succession. We then have E sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and C sharp, which is C sharp major over E sharp. That is 5/6 of 5, because C sharp is the the dominant of F sharp, which is our dominant. And then interestingly, what makes it kind of feel like we moved to F sharp briefly, but I'm not going to analyze it as a modulation, is the fact that we get A natural, so we get some ascending chromaticism here, G sharp A, A sharp B, and we get a minor 5. So it's interesting that we get a chord contextualized this way. The dominant, minor dominants aren't super common, but we do see them with a little bit of regularity. But then the chord gets recontextualized as a major triad with a minor seventh, E, F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp, which is F sharp 7 over E, so that's third inversion, 5, 4, 2, and we would expect that to go to a tonic triad in first inversion, which it does D, F sharp, B, and F sharp, which is B minor over D, 1, 6. We then have D, B, G sharp, and F sharp. That's a G sharp minor 7 flat 5 over D, which is a harmonization of the melodic minor scale, I believe, because we have the G sharp, the A sharp, and the A sharp going to the B, which is like the 6, 7, 1 with the raised scale degrees for melodic minor. And I think that this is just a harmonization of the melodic minor and not a secondary dominant, because G sharp would be tonicizing A, and here we're going to A sharp. So I think this is a 6 chord that is diminished and in second inversion, so 6, 4, 3. That then takes us to A sharp diminished over C sharp, A sharp, C sharp, C sharp, and E, which would be our 7 chord in first inversion, so 6, some adjacent harmony here, 6 going to 7, which we would expect to go to 1, B, F sharp, A sharp, and E, similar to this idea that we've had in some previous measures. This A sharp is an accented non-chord tone, and this E is an accented non-chord tone. So this is like a mirrored suspension where it resolves upwards to the tonic, and here we have a 4-3 suspension over the bass. So if we look on beat 2, that's where we get the full realization of the chord. It's B minor in root position. And then we have this A sharp right here and this C sharp, kind of hinting at the idea of a leading tone chord here, but it doesn't get fully contextualized or fully spelled out with the other voices. We have A sharp, we have C sharp, we have B, and we have F sharp. That's like a chordal harmony or some type of cluster. And then we have B, E sharp, G sharp, and D. And that's E sharp fully diminished 7th over B, which is another 4-3 chord, which is kind of interesting seeing it in this context. It looks like we have 5 going to 1, or sorry, we have 1 going to 5 in this half cadence, but instead of 1 being part of a 1 chord, it's 1 that's part of a secondary dominant. 7 fully diminished 4-3 of 5, which then goes to F sharp major, F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp, which is our dominant. And then we get somewhat of a repeat of the first section, so it's pretty much identical. In fact, it might be entirely identical. The only thing different between the two phrases is the melody in the second complete measure of the phrase, and that's the only difference that I'm seeing now. So the progression's going to be the same, so I'm not going to spend as much time talking about it, but regardless, 5 goes to 1, B, D, F sharp, and B, that's B minor. Then we have the same thing happening here. We have C sharp, D, F sharp, and B. This D and this F sharp are both accented non-chord tones, and what we're really getting is C sharp, E, and A sharp, which is A sharp diminished over C sharp. That's a 7-6 chord, and then that chord gets turned into a 7-7 chord in first inversion on beat 3, C sharp, E, G, and A sharp, which is just taking it and turning it into a 6-5 chord. We then get the same sort of idea on this beat here, where we have 3 accented non-chord tones, A sharp, G, and E, all over D, where the real chord is actually happening over beat 2, D, D, F sharp, and B, which is our tonic triad in first inversion, B minor. We have a passing tone in the tenor before we get E, B, G, and C sharp. That's another C sharp minor 7 flat 5 over E. Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. Neighbor tone here in the tenor before we get F sharp, B, F sharp, and D. That's our tonic triad. In a second inversion, we then have some escape tones and a neighbor tone. Escape tones in the upper voices, neighbor tone in the lower, in the bass, which happens to spell out an E minor triad, which is a root position 4 chord, our subdominant, before we get F sharp 7, F sharp, A sharp, E, and C sharp. It's 5-7. Put a bracket underneath it to show their relationship with one another, as some textbooks do. And then we have B minor, B, B, D, and B. So the spelling of this chord is a little different, but still B minor is implied, so there is a difference here. Oh no, just kidding, the chords are spelled the same between the two. I didn't comment on the fact that it's an incomplete triad, but seeing 3 roots and a third is not super uncommon. It's a pretty normative way of spelling a triad, actually. Sometimes even you get triads that are spelled with 2 roots and 2 thirds. Sometimes you don't even get a third, but it's implied. Okay, next we have another phrase similar to the second phrase. So this is really just a slight variation on the A section, just getting a repeat where we get a little bit of difference. But again, this is like a linear piece with instrumental interludes, so the repeats wouldn't be appropriate in this case. Okay, looking ahead, we have B minor again, B, D, F sharp, and B. Then we have E sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and C. That's a secondary dominant. That is C sharp major over E sharp, which is 5/6 of 5. And that goes again to an F sharp minor triad, which would be our minor dominant, F sharp, C sharp, A natural, and C sharp, which is a 5 chord, like I said, lowercase. And then we get the chord respelled as a major triad with a minor 7th, E natural, F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. That's 5/4/2, and that resolves to 1/6, as we would expect a 5/4/2 chord to resolve to, D, F sharp, B, and F sharp, which is B minor in first inversion. Then we have D, B, G sharp, and F sharp. That's G sharp minor 7 flat 5 over D, which is a 6/4/3 chord. It's a harmonization of the melodic minor scale. We then have C sharp, A sharp, and E, which is A sharp diminished in first inversion. That's a 7/6 chord. Some adjacent harmony here where the chords are going in order of the scale. And then we go to B minor, but again we have some accented non-chord tones. This A sharp and this E are A sharp to E is a diminished 4th, so that resolves inward to a minor 3rd, the B and the D, which is interesting. So it encloses the tones that are being resolved to. But regardless of one chord's being implied here, it's just B minor, and then that's reiterated by the bass leaping down an octave, B, F sharp, B, and D, with a neighbor tone in the melody as well, before we get B, G sharp, and D, which is, B, E sharp, G sharp, and D, which is E sharp diminished over E sharp fully diminished 7th over B, which is a 7/4/3 of 5, before we cadence on 5, F, A sharp, and C sharp, which is our 5 chord. So very slight difference between the way the cadences occur and the progressions, just little slight variations in the way that the melody and the supporting voices manifest. But here we're getting new material, and this is going to be the first of the direct modulations that we see. From some point we go from B minor to A major, where we see this juxtaposition of F sharp major here as the dominant of B minor, and F sharp minor here as the submediant of A major. So this F sharp minor chord, F sharp, C sharp, A natural, and F sharp is a minor triad. We then go to G sharp, B, B, and E, which is E over G sharp. That is our dominant in first inversion. And then we get what I'm calling a passing tone in the bass, passing tone in the melody, and a series of passing, what would we call the passing tone here? It's kind of like a passing tone, or it contributes to like a neighbor tone figure here if you couple it with the beat 3, the note on beat 3 in the melody. But if we take a look at all these notes, we have F sharp, B, A, and D, which is B minor 7 over F sharp, which is another 4/3 chord. We can call that 2/4/3. That's happening there. That's fine. Some transitive harmony. But really what's sort of happening is the 5 chord is being re-rotated over the course of the beat. Kind of the same thing that's happening here on beat, the first complete measure of the first phrase. We have 7/6 and it gets turned to 6/5. Here we have 5/6 that gets turned into E7 in root position, E, G sharp, and D, which is an incomplete 7 chord, but that's okay. It's missing the note that doesn't provide, that provides the least amount of context to the chord, at least in this tonal language. Sometimes the 5 provides a lot of context to the chord if you look at like altered dominance in jazz and stuff. But we don't see a lot of altered dominance in Bach's music, if any at all. Maybe some flat 9s here and there, but they're more like, suspensions rather than implied on the beat. But regardless, here we have our A major chord, A, E, A, and C sharp, which is our tonic triad, and I think this is where we go to the key of B minor as we prepare for our deceptive cadence in the key of B minor, and we're going to call this one chord our 7 chord because, well, we get chromaticism in ascending bass line here. We have some passing tones in the upper 3 voices. We have A, F sharp, B, and D, so kind of like a passing tonic triad over a 7th, which is kind of interesting, but I don't really think that contributes too much to the chord progression. It does add to the texture though, and that's why I mention it. But then we have A sharp, G, C sharp, and E, which is A sharp fully diminished 7th in root position. That is now no longer a subtonic 7th, but a leading tone 7th. That resolves where we would expect B, F sharp, B, and D, which is our tonic triad B minor in root position. Then we have F sharp, E, A sharp, and C, which is F sharp 7 in root position. Some neighbor tones in the upper 3 voices before we get the same chord again on beat 3. And then instead of cadencing on B minor, we cadence on G major, which is close to B minor. They share B and D in common, but instead of F sharp, G major has G. And it's interesting because we only get the G in one of the voices, and the B minor is pretty much doubled the way that you would expect in the upper 3 voices, so it's fascinating how that occurs. So a deceptive cadence. They're not super uncommon, but I'd say plagal cadences I'd say are the least common. But of the 4 sort of textbook, air quotes there, textbook cadences that you learn about in harmony, Western harmony that is, deceptive cadences and plagal cadences, plagal cadences don't occur as frequently as half cadences and perfect authentic cadences proportionately. Okay, looking ahead, we have what I'm calling a direct modulation to the key of F sharp minor. That's just what it sounds like to me. We just immediately have this, I guess you could say that, we could say that we're in the key of, well, I think there are a couple of different ways. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say that we modulate to F sharp major once we get to this A major chord here, because there's really no reason for us to say that we've modulated until we get there. Here we have G sharp, B, and D, which is G sharp diminished in first inversion, so that's 7, oh no, I see why I did that now, because we're in the key of B minor. I'm going to say that we are in the key of F sharp then, because it really feels like this A major, this 7 to 1 in the key of A major is very fleeting in the grand scheme of things, because interestingly, this phrase does go to F sharp minor, but then moves to the key of A major, where we then have an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of A major. But I think this phrase for the most part is exclusively in F sharp minor. So this G sharp diminished triad is 2-6 because it's over B, but I think it's also kind of functioning as like a 7-6 of 3 here, because G sharp diminished also happens to be the leading tone chord to A. So depending on how you look at it, it really just, they're effectively saying the same thing. And I think the fact that they're paired with one another has some significance. So maybe one analysis is stronger than the other, but I think they're ultimately achieving the same thing. But regardless, we go to A, E, A, and C sharp, which is our mediant in the key of F sharp minor, and then we start to see the melodic minor in the bass. D sharp, E sharp, and F sharp. So D sharp, F sharp, A, and B is B7 over D sharp. Now, we might be tempted to call this like 5 of 4 or something, but I think, oh no, we're in the key of F sharp minor. That wouldn't make sense. Would that make sense? This is a B7 chord, which would be 5 of 7. But I think this is a harmonization of the melodic minor scale as it's present in the bass, and usually harmonizations of melodic minor occur when we do have that 6-7-1 pattern in one of the voices. So I think this is actually just some adjacent harmony, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5, and then we go to E sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and B, which is C sharp 7 over B. That would be 5, 6, 5, or C sharp 7 over E sharp, apologies. That's 5, 6, 5. And then we go to where we would expect that to happen, or goodness, I'm getting all tongue-tied here. This resolves where we expect it to our tonic triad, F sharp minor, F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, and A natural, which is, like I said, our tonic. Then we have G sharp, B, E sharp, and G sharp, which is E sharp diminished over G sharp. That's a 7-6 chord, and you might know where this is going, the 1-7-6-1-6 progression that we've seen in the chorales before. A, C sharp, F sharp, and F sharp, which is our tonic triad in first inversion, and I think this is where we modulate to the key of A major via this 6-6 chord. This 6-6 chord goes to D, F sharp, and A, which is D major in root position. That is a 4 chord. Then we have anticipation in the alto and a passing tone in the melody, which turns the chord into G sharp, B, D, and F sharp. So we could actually analyze that as a G sharp minor 7 flat 5 over D, which would be another 4-3 chord. We're seeing a lot of 4-3 chords today, and that actually doesn't go where we expect it to. It goes to, oh no, you know what? We can say that this happens over a larger period of time. We could say that this they're both anticipations. This is not a passing tone. Apologies. So we have 2 anticipations here, and then we get 7-4-3 happening on beat 2. There we go. Sorry, that was just my brain having a hard time reading the staff music, and it doesn't help that it's extra small today, so apologies if you have to watch on full screen or zoom in on the video. It's just trying to fit it on one page for the sake of saving paper. But then we have E, E, A, and C sharp, which is A major over, or we could say that it's E, E, G sharp, and yeah, of course, we have E, E, G sharp, and B, which is a 5 chord, that's E major, and then we have some anticipations happening before. We have an anticipation happening in the alto, and a double, sort of like a passing tone figure with a little bit of a neighbor tone here in the melody. So this 5 chord is happening, and then we get some A major hints beforehand, before we cadence on A major, A, E, A, and C sharp. 7 going to 5 is a relatively uncommon progression, or 5 going to 7. I just think that really what's happening here is just an extended period of dominance. So 4 wants to go to 7, 4 wants to go to 5. 5 and 7 are similar chords because they share 2 notes in common, and they both largely depend on the leading tone for their means of getting to 1. So I just look at this as like a contrapuntal and very tense section that resolves to the key of A. And here we get our second direct modulation. At some point we move to the key of B minor, or hint at the idea of B minor in the instrumental section. So when the voices come in, we have F sharp major, not F sharp minor like we would expect in the key of A major. So that would be our 5 chord, F sharp, A, and C sharp. That takes us to B minor, B, F sharp, B, and D, which is our tonic triad. We then have E, G, A sharp, and G, G, A sharp, and E, which is an A sharp fully diminished 7 chord over G, which would be 7-4-2. Kind of an interesting chord. I feel like we've seen it before, but it's definitely not a common chord. And it doesn't resolve the way that we would expect it to. We get this like E minor triad in the spelled out in the bass. So the 7th like deliberately gets skipped, where we get E, D, B, and F, where here we get like, what is it called, transitive harmony, what I've been calling it a transitive progression, which is like moving to a 4 chord here. So we get the A sharp going to B in the bass, but it ends up resolving not to a B minor triad, but to an E minor triad. So a bit of a deceptive progression as well, transitive and deceptive, because we're going to a chord that's not really functioning like a tonic, where drawing attention to the note that isn't the root of the chord, which is interesting. We then get E, D, this should be a 4-7 chord actually, because this is not a B, this is a D, and that same chord is iterated for the most part on the next beat, E, D, B, and G. Looking ahead, we have F sharp, C sharp, A sharp, and F sharp with this delayed 7th in the melody. That is a 5 chord, that's our dominant, and that goes where we expect, B minor, B, B, F sharp, and D with a passing tone in the melody. That is our tonic. And now we're in the home stretch. We're getting ready for our last cadence. If we're not already in the cadence, we're definitely in the zone. We have G, B, B, and G, B, G, and B. You can make the argument that that is a 6 chord, which I will call that a 6 chord, 1 going to 6. You could also call it a 4-6 chord if you look at this E as a chord tone, but because there's no, I don't really think it matters too much. They're more or less achieving the same thing. I'm going to call it a 6 chord in this case, but calling it a 4-6 chord it's like 6 of one, half dozen of another. They're really achieving the same thing here, and I think both analyses are accurate. Here we have E, B, G, and C sharp, which is C sharp minor 7 flat 5 over E. Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. 6 going to 2 I think is maybe maybe strengthening the argument of this being a 6 chord, even though a 4-6 is basically a 6 chord. They share 2 tones and a bass. And then we would expect that to go to 5. This F is a non-chord tone, or F sharp rather. F sharp, A sharp, F sharp, and C with this anticipation in the melody as well. So that's our dominant, and our perfect authentic cadence ends. Very interestingly, we have not a B major triad, but an open 5th, B, F sharp, and B. So we know that one is being implied, but we don't know if it's major or minor. And the way that I hear it is it makes it sound like it's major, because that's what I'm expecting when you're hearing the end of a chorale in minor is the Picardy third, but the absence of the third leaves us unknowing. Is this a chorale that doesn't end on a major triad and instead ends on a minor triad? We'll never know, because it actually ends on an open 5th, which is just as bizarre and even more obscure than ending a minor chorale on a minor triad. So definitely an interesting bit of harmonic information going on here, but we don't know what kind of triad we're ending on because we lack the proper information. And that's today's analysis. This was a very dense chorale. Lots of interesting harmonic tidbits here. Lots of 4-3 chords, minor dominant, direct modulations as a byproduct of the instrumental interludes being absent, but still. 7-4-2 chord, adjacent harmony, 2-3-4-5 is always interesting to see. Modulating via the subtonic 7th is interesting as well. Seeing a 1-6-4-5-7 interrupted by another chord is interesting as well. Lots of different interesting tidbits in this chorale in particular that really stretch the diatonic scales to their limit. We're seeing a lot of melodic minor, and that really changes the profile of the harmony that you would expect. Definitely, this is definitely not a chorale that's just a lot of 1s, 4s, and 5s. We get pretty much the entire gamut. So that's always interesting. But regardless, thank you so much for watching the video and supporting the channel. I'm currently in the process of analyzing all of Bach's chorales, so if you are interested in following me along on that journey or going on that journey on your own and comparing your analyses to my own, feel free to subscribe and hit the notification icon. I upload once a day, and you will get notified about when I upload, which is awesome. It's so cool that I have like 67 subscribers. I just posted my videos up here, so that I had an easy way for my analysis to be in my portfolio, but I'm really excited that people are actually following along and enjoying the analyses for the most part, so that makes me really happy. And there are hundreds of videos, like almost 300 videos left on the docket. So if you want that daily dose of content, feel free to, like I said, subscribe and hit the notification icon. But on that note, thank you again so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I look forward to tomorrow's analysis, and I hope you take care.